woke up to the smell of burnt coffee and the hum of the apartment's air recycler, same as every morning. My studio overlooked the lower districts of New Santiago, where the morning fog hadn't quite burned off yet. I'd lived here 3 years, ever since I started working data entry for Meridian Systems, logging shipping manifests for cargo haulers that traveled between Earth and the mining colonies on Titan. Not glamorous, but it paid rent. I was halfway through my toast when my terminal chirped. Personal message, not work. That was unusual. I swiped it open. The face that appeared made my stomach drop. It was me. Same dark hair pulled back. Same scar through my left eyebrow, from when I fell off my bike at 12. Same everything. Except this version of me looked terrified. "Listen carefully," she said, her voice shaking. "In exactly 4 minutes, agents from the Temporal Regulation Bureau are going to knock on your door. Don't open it. Don't try to run. Get to the roof." The message cut out. I sat there, toast forgotten, heart hammering. This had to be a prank. Some kind of deepfake. Except the terminal showed the message originated from a quantum encrypted relay, the kind that cost more than I made in a year. 3 minutes. I grabbed my jacket and ran for the door, then stopped. "The roof." She'd said the roof. I changed direction, took the emergency stairs 2 at a time. The roof access was supposed to be locked, but someone had broken the mechanism months ago and building management never fixed it. I burst onto the roof, gasping. The city stretched out in every direction. Elevated maglev tracks, cutting through the smog, delivery drones swarming like insects. Nothing looked different. Nothing looked wrong. "You actually came." I spun around. Another woman stood by the solar panel array, mid-30s, matey, wearing a dark jacket I didn't recognize. She smiled, and I saw myself in her face too, but older, with lines around her eyes. "Who are you?" I managed. "I'm you. 15 years from now, and we're in serious trouble." I laughed, couldn't help it. "This is insane." I know how it sounds. I remember this conversation. I remember not believing me. She pulled something from her pocket, a small metal disc. "You have a burn scar on your right hip from when you tried to make pasta at midnight and knocked the pot over. You never told anyone because you were embarrassed. Your favorite teacher in high school was Dr. Chen, and you almost asked her for a recommendation letter 3 times, but chickened out. Your brother died when you were 17, and you still can't listen to classical guitar without crying." My throat went tight. "What do you want?" 4 days from now, you're going to receive a work assignment. Manifest audit for a cargo ship called the Persephone Dawn. You'll find a discrepancy in the cargo logs. Normally you'd just flag it and move on, but this time you're going to be curious. You'll dig deeper, and you'll discover the ship is carrying something that isn't on any manifest. Prototype technology. A device that can create localized temporal anomalies. It was supposed to be destroyed, but someone inside Meridian Systems decided to sell it instead. When you report it, they'll try to silence you. You'll run. You'll survive. Eventually, you'll get your hands on the device and learn to use it. I stared at her. "You're saying I become a time traveler?" "I'm saying you become a fugitive. The Bureau doesn't take kindly to unauthorized temporal manipulation. I spent 15 years jumping through timelines, trying to fix the mess that device created, and I need your help." "Why? What mess?" She walked to the roof's edge, looking out over the city. "The device doesn't just move you through time, it creates branches, alternate realities. Every time it's used, the timeline fractures. I've been trying to collapse them back into one coherent stream, but I can't do it alone. I need the version of me that hasn't been corrupted by the device yet. The version that still thinks clearly. So don't take the device. Change the timeline. Don't dig into those cargo logs." I've tried that. 12 different versions of this conversation. Every time I convince you not to investigate, something worse happens. The device falls into different hands. Criminal syndicates. Rogue governments. In one timeline it triggers a war that kills billions. The only path that works is if you find it. Learn to control it, but this time with my help. With my knowledge. The door to the roof slammed open. 2 people in dark suits emerged, their movements too coordinated, too purposeful. They scanned the roof, and their eyes locked onto us. "Zara Okonkwo," one of them called out. "Step away from the temporal violator." My future self grabbed my hand. Her skin was warm, real. "Do you trust me? I don't even understand what's happening." "Good enough." She pressed the disc into my palm. It felt heavier than it should, like it contained something dense and dangerous. "When you find the device, you'll know what to do. Look for me in the fractured district, the cafe with the blue door. I'll find you. Wait, I don't. She shoved me hard. I stumbled backward, and she ran straight at the agents. They moved to intercept her, reaching for weapons, and I did the only thing I could think of. I ran the other direction, and dove through the roof access door, slamming it behind me. I took the stairs down so fast, I nearly fell, emerged into my floor's hallway, got back into my apartment, and locked the door. My hands were shaking. The disc sat in my palm, ordinary and impossible. 4 days until the assignment. 4 days until my life changed forever. I spent those days in a haze, going through the motions at work, coming home to stare at the disc. I researched the Temporal Regulation Bureau, found nothing but vague government websites about maintaining timeline integrity. I searched for the Persephone Dawn in Meridian's databases, and found it scheduled to dock at the orbital platform next week. When the assignment came through, I almost deleted it. My supervisor's message was routine. Audit requested on recent cargo shipments. Standard quarterly review. The Persephone Dawn was third on the list. I opened the files, scrolled through manifests. Everything looked normal at first, just the usual industrial equipment and raw materials. But then I noticed it, a weight discrepancy of 300 kilograms unaccounted for, in Hold 7. The cargo listed didn't match the mass. I should have just flagged it, written a note for compliance, moved on. Instead, I dug deeper. Cross-referenced the ship's crew, found one name that didn't match any employment records, traced the ship's route, and found an unlisted stop at a research station that was supposed to be decommissioned. Followed the money, and discovered payments routed through shell corporations. My terminal chimed. Incoming call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered. Stop looking. The voice was distorted, artificial. Delete what you found. Forget you saw anything. This is your only warning. They disconnected. I sat there, the disc heavy in my pocket, and thought about my future self running at those agents. Thought about timeline branches and devices that could fracture reality. Thought about having a choice. I saved everything I'd found to an encrypted drive, sent copies to 3 different secure locations. Then I called my supervisor. I need to report something, I said. Within an hour, 2 Meridian security officers arrived at my apartment. They were polite, but firm. I needed to come with them to answer some questions. Standard procedure. I went. What else could I do? They took me to a sub-level office I'd never seen before. White walls, no windows, a metal table with 2 chairs. The woman who entered wasn't security. She wore an expensive suit and had the kind of face that was used to being obeyed. Ms. Okonkwo, I'm Director Hassan. I understand you've uncovered some irregularities in our shipping manifests. 300 kilograms of unlisted cargo. Falsified crew records. Illegal station stops. You've been very thorough. She sat across from me, folded her hands. What you found is part of a classified research project. Above your clearance level. The irregularities exist for security reasons. That's not how classified projects work. No, it isn't. She smiled, and I saw something cold in it. You have 2 options. Option 1. You sign a non-disclosure agreement, accept a substantial financial compensation for your discretion, and forget this ever happened. Option 2. You continue to pursue this matter, and you discover that your employment with Meridian Systems can be terminated for cause. Your financial records show some questionable transactions that would be of interest to law enforcement. Your background check reveals inconsistencies. You understand what I'm saying. You'd frame me. I'd protect my investment. The device on the Persephone Dawn is worth more than you can imagine. It's already sold. The buyer arrives tomorrow. This happens whether you cooperate or not. I'm offering you a way out. I thought about my future self. 15 years of running. 15 years of trying to fix a fractured timeline. How much? I asked. She named a figure that would clear my debts and set me up for years. I need to think about it. You have until morning. They let me go. I walked out of Meridian's building into the city's evening rush. People streaming past on their way home from work, the maglev humming overhead, everything normal and ordinary, except nothing would ever be normal again. I went to the fractured district. It took 3 hours and 2 train changes. The neighborhood was old, pre-expansion, with actual streets instead of elevated walkways. I found the cafe with a blue door just as the sun was setting. She was waiting at a corner table, my future self, nursing something dark in a chipped mug. You look terrible, she said when I sat down. They offered me money to walk away. I know. I remember. You didn't take it. Should I? Shook her head. The device gets used whether you're involved or not. But if you walk away, you won't be there to stop what comes next. The buyer is a collector of illegal technology, the kind of person who experiments without caring about consequences. In the timeline where you took the money, the device activated during transport and created a temporal fracture that swallowed half of New Santiago. 4 million people erased from existence. I felt sick. And if I don't walk away, you steal the device before the sale. You run, they hunt you, but you survive long enough to learn how to use it properly. Long enough to start fixing things. Why me? Why not you just take it? I'm flagged by the Bureau. They track my temporal signature. But you right now, you're clean. You can get close to the Persephone Dawn in ways I can't. I pulled the disc from my pocket, set it on the table between us. What is this? A localized temporal anchor. When everything goes wrong, when you're trapped with no way out, you activate that. It'll pull you out of the timeline entirely, into a neutral space where you can reset. But it only works once, and only for you. Use it wisely. How do I steal a heavily guarded device from a cargo ship? She smiled, and this time it was warm, familiar, like looking in a mirror that showed who I could become. The same way you do everything else. Carefully, and with excellent timing. I'll help. We have until tomorrow evening when the buyer arrives. That's when security will be at its tightest, but it's also when they'll transfer the device from the ship to the exchange point. In transit, we'll have a window. We spent the night planning. She knew the shift's layout, the security protocols, the timing of shift changes. She'd lived through this before, died through it in some timelines, survived in others. One more thing, she said, as dawn broke outside the cafe windows. When you have the device, you're going to want to use it to fix everything immediately. Don't. It takes practice. The first few times you activate it, you'll just create more branches, more problems. You need to learn control first. How long did it take you? 2 years. A lot of mistakes. A lot of people hurt because I acted too fast. The exchange was set for midnight at a private hangar in the orbital platform's cargo district. We arrived early, watching from a maintenance shaft that ran parallel to the hangar. My future self had equipment I'd never seen. Devices that could mask our heat signatures and hack security feeds. We watched them bring the device in. It was smaller than I'd expected, maybe the size of a briefcase, covered in geometric patterns that seemed to shift when you looked at them too long. 4 guards surrounded it. Director Hassan was there, and a man in expensive clothes who had to be the buyer. Now, my future self whispered. She activated something, and the lights cut out. Emergency systems kicked in, but there was a 3-second gap, pure darkness, and we moved. I don't know how she could see, but she pulled me forward with absolute certainty. I heard shouting, the sound of weapons being drawn. Then light flooded back, and we were standing next to the device. She grabbed it, shouted into my arms. It was warm, vibrating slightly, alive in some way I couldn't explain. Run. Gunfire. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. We ran for the maintenance shaft, and I felt something hot graze my shoulder. My future self stumbled, grabbed the wall, kept moving. Blood on her jacket. Go, she gasped. Get to the surface. I'll hold them. I'm not leaving you. You already did. I remember this part too. She pulled out a device, similar to the one she'd given me. This is where I jumped back, where I became the person who came to warn you. The loop closes here. She activated it, and vanished, just winked out of existence, and I was alone with alarms screaming and footsteps pounding toward me. I ran, climbed through the maintenance shaft, the device clutched to my chest, and emerged in a service corridor, found an emergency pod, the kind used for evacuations, and launched myself away from the platform toward Earth below. The re-entry was rough. The pod wasn't designed for passenger comfort, just survival. I crashed in the ocean 30 kilometers from the coast, treaded water, until an automated rescue drone found me. By the time I made it back to the city, my face was all over the news feeds. Meridian employee wanted for theft of classified materials. Armed and dangerous. Contact authorities if spotted. I ditched my identification, used cash I'd hidden, and disappeared into the lower districts, where people didn't ask questions. For weeks I moved from place to place, learning the device in stolen moments. It responded to intention more than physical manipulation. When I focused on moving backward, I could feel time becoming elastic around me. Small jumps at first. Seconds. Minutes. Never enough to change anything major, just enough to avoid the Bureau agents who kept finding me. I created my first real branch 3 months in. tried to go back and stop the theft, prevent myself from ever getting involved. Instead, I created a parallel timeline where I succeeded, and another version of me lived a quiet life. The device showed me both realities existing simultaneously, and I understood what my future self had meant about fractures. That was when I stopped running and started learning for real. I found others like me, eventually. People who'd stumbled into temporal technology, who were trying to understand it. We formed a kind of network, sharing information, helping each other avoid the Bureau. I learned that time wasn't linear like everyone thought. It was more like a tree, constantly branching, and the device let you move between branches if you knew how. I spent 2 years practicing, learning to move with precision, learning to collapse unnecessary branches back into the main timeline, learning when to act and when to wait. And then one day, I understood what I had to do. I jumped back to the roof of my apartment building, to that morning, when I first met myself. I became the older version, the one who'd lived through everything, the one who came back to warn the younger me, and set it all in motion. The loop closed. I jumped forward again, to the hangar, took the wound that would send me back. Each time I lived it, I refined it slightly, made sure the younger version of me survived, made sure the device ended up in the right hands, mine, because I'd finally figured out what the device was really for. It wasn't just about moving through time or creating branches. It was about convergence, about taking all those fractured timelines and weaving them back into something coherent, something whole. I've been working on it for 15 years now. 15 years of jumping between branches, finding the points where timelines can be merged, slowly pulling reality back together. I'm not done yet. There are still fractures, still timelines where things went terribly wrong, but I'm closer than I've ever been. And sometimes when I'm tired and the work seems endless, I think about that morning when I woke up to burr coffee and the hum of the air recycler, back when my biggest problem was making rent, when everything was simple and ordinary and linear. I can't go back to that timeline. It's been overwritten too many times, collapsed and reformed and merged with others. But I can create something better. A timeline where the device was never made. Where none of this happened. Where a younger version of me wakes up to burr coffee and lives a normal life. That's what I'm working toward. That's the final convergence. I just hope, when it's done, I'll still exist to see it. I'd been tracking the convergence points for 3 months when I found her. Not another version of me, but someone else entirely. Someone who shouldn't exist. She was sitting in a noodle shop in the fractured district, the kind of place where the steam from the kitchen fogged up the windows, and nobody looked at anyone too closely. I'd come there following a temporal signature, a ripple that didn't match any of my projections. The device had been vibrating in my pocket for the last hour, warning me something was wrong. She looked up when I walked in, early 20s, with short black hair and a burn scar along her jawline. Her eyes met mine, and I saw recognition there, which was impossible. I'd never seen her before in any timeline. "Zara Okonkwo," she said. "Not a question. You're late. I've been waiting 6 weeks." I sat down across from her, hand on the device. "Who are you?" "My name is Kira Chen, and before you ask, yes, I'm from a collapsed timeline, one you erased 4 years ago when you merged the Singapore branch with the mainstream." My stomach dropped. That's not possible. When timelines collapse, everything in them ceases to exist. You should be gone. Should be. But your device had a malfunction. A tiny fracture in the temporal anchor. When you collapsed my timeline, it created a pocket. A small stable loop where a handful of people got trapped. We've been existing in the spaces between your branches, watching you work, trying to get your attention. I pulled out the device, examined it. She was right. There was a microfracture I'd never noticed. So small it barely registered. But fractures compound, multiply, create problems. "How many people?" I asked. "In the pocket?" 37. Most of them don't understand what happened. They think they're in some kind of afterlife or simulation. But a few of us figured it out. We've been studying the temporal patterns, learning how your device works. And Zara, we found something. Something you need to see. She pulled out a tablet, laid it on the table between the noodle bowls. The screen showed a temporal map, the kind I'd been building for years, but hers was more detailed, more complete. "This is every timeline you've collapsed or merged in the past 15 years. See the pattern?" I looked. At first it seemed random, but then I saw it. The convergence points weren't actually converging, they were spiraling, tightening toward a central point that looked like a knot in the fabric of time itself. What is that? A temporal singularity. Every time you collapse a timeline, You're not eliminating it. You're compressing it. All that matter, all that energy, all those possibilities, are being crushed down into a smaller and smaller space. Eventually it's going to reach critical mass. And then it explodes. The temporal supernova. It'll unravel every timeline simultaneously. Not just the branches you've created, but the original timeline. Everything. Everyone. God. I stared at the map, my mind racing. 15 years of work. 15 years of thinking I was fixing things. And instead, I'd been building a bomb. Why didn't the device warn me? It shows temporal instabilities. Because the singularity is made up of collapsed timelines. As far as your device is concerned, they don't exist anymore. They're not registering as a threat, because they're not supposed to be there. She leaned forward, but they are there. Compressed, unstable, and getting worse. Every time you use that thing, I felt sick. How long do we have? Based on the current compression rate? 3 weeks, maybe 4. Then the singularity reaches critical mass, and everything ends. The noodle shop suddenly felt too small, too warm. I stood up, needed air, needed space to think. Kira followed me outside into the street where the evening crowds were starting to gather. There has to be a way to stop it, I said. Reverse the compression. Stabilize the singularity. There is. But you're not going to like it. Tell me. She pulled up another display on her tablet, this one showing a complex temporal equation I'd never seen before. The singularity is created by collapsed timelines. To stop it, you need to uncollapse them. Restore every timeline you've merged. Let them exist separately again. That would undo everything. All the damage from the branches, all the fractures, they'd all come back. Yes, millions would die in some of those timelines. The wars, the disasters, all of it. Yes, I walked, not caring where, just moving. Kira kept pace beside me. We ended up at the river overlook, where you could see the lights of the city reflecting off the water. Ships moved in the distance, their running lights blinking in the darkness. There has to be another way, I said. I've been working on this for 6 weeks. Every angle, every possibility. This is it. Either you restore the timelines, or the singularity detonates. Those are the options. What about the people in your pocket? If I restore the timelines, what happens to them? We get integrated back into our original timeline, the one you collapsed. We go back to existing, but in our own branch. I looked at her. You want to go back. I want to exist. Right now I'm a ghost. We all are. Stuck between your branches, unable to touch anything real. Do you know what that's like? To watch life happening and not be part of it? I did, actually. That was how I'd felt for 15 years. Always jumping between timelines, never staying long enough to belong anywhere. Always working toward a future where I could finally stop and rest. If I restore the branches, I'll have to live with knowing all those people died in the other timelines. All the disasters I prevented, they'll happen again. You'll have to live with it, but at least you'll be alive. We'll all be alive. That's more than we'll have if the singularity detonates. I pulled out the device, felt its familiar weight and warmth. 15 years, thousands of jumps, hundreds of collapsed timelines, all of it leading here. How do I do it? The device doesn't have a function for restoring collapsed timelines. That's what I've been working on. The device responds to intention, right? You focus on where you want to go, and it takes you there. Same principle, but reversed. You need to focus on the timelines you collapsed. Hold them all in your mind simultaneously, and will them back into existence. That's impossible. There are hundreds of them. I can't hold that much in my mind at once. Not alone. But what if there were multiple versions of you, each holding a portion of the collapsed timelines? I understood immediately. You want me to create temporal duplicates, split myself across multiple timelines, and coordinate the restoration. It's the only way. The singularity is in 3 weeks. You need to start now. We spent the next 2 days planning. Kira knew more about temporal mechanics than I'd learned in 15 years. She had time to study in the pocket, time to analyze my work from the outside. She showed me how to create stable duplicates, how to synchronize their actions across timelines, how to hold multiple temporal states in superposition. It was dangerous. Splitting yourself meant dividing your consciousness. If one duplicate failed, if one timeline destabilized during restoration, the whole thing could cascade. I could end up fractured permanently, pieces of myself scattered across different realities. But the alternative was worse. I started with the earliest collapses, small timelines, simple branches that hadn't diverged much from the mainstream. I created a duplicate, set her back to the moment of collapse, and together we focused on restoration. It felt like pulling a broken bone back into place. Painful, necessary. The timeline flickered back into existence, separate and whole, and I felt a piece of the pressure ease in my chest. One down, 317 to go. I worked for weeks, created dozens of duplicates, each one handling multiple restorations. Time became fluid, meaningless. I existed in multiple moments simultaneously, experiencing the restoration of timelines as both observer and participant. Some of them were hard. There was a timeline where the temporal device had fallen into the hands of a criminal syndicate, and they'd used it to rob banks across 6 continents. Restoring that meant those crimes happened again, those people got hurt again. There was the timeline where the device triggered a war between nations competing for temporal technology. 4 million dead in the nuclear exchanges. Restoring it meant those deaths weren't prevented anymore. I saw them all, experienced them all, carried the weight of every life lost, because I chose to restore the branches instead of letting the singularity detonate. But I also saw the people in the pockets, like Kira, trapped in the spaces between timelines. 37 in her pocket, 18 in another, 143 in a third. Hundreds of people who existed because of my mistakes, who deserved a chance to live in a real timeline. I gave them that chance. With 3 days left before the singularity was projected to detonate, I had restored 315 timelines. 2 remained. The first was easy. A minor branch where I'd prevented an industrial accident. The duplicate I sent barely needed my help. The timeline restored smoothly, integrated back into the web of possibilities. The second was the Singapore branch, Kira's home timeline. It was massive, a full divergence that had existed for 8 years before I collapsed it. Millions of people with lives and histories and futures. Restoring it would require more power than any of the others, more focus, more precision. I created 5 duplicates for this one, 6 versions of me, all working in concert, holding the Singapore branch in our collective consciousness. We positioned ourselves at different points in the timeline's history, anchoring it at multiple moments to ensure stability. Kira was there too, watching from the pocket, waiting. Ready? I asked my duplicates across time. They all confirmed. I took a breath, gripped the device, and focused everything I had on restoration. The timeline snapped back into existence like a rubber band released. I felt it solidify, felt the pocket dissolve, felt Kira and the others fall back into their proper place in reality. The Singapore branch was whole again, separate from the main timeline, existing in its own right. And then something went wrong. The device started vibrating violently. The temporal map showed the singularity destabilizing, but not the way Kira predicted. Instead of detonating, it was inverting. All that compressed energy wasn't exploding outward, it was collapsing inward, creating a void, a temporal black hole. Zara, one of my duplicates, shouted across the timeline connection. The restoration triggered something. The singularity is feeding on the restored timelines, growing stronger instead of dissipating. I pulled up the readings. She was right. Every timeline we've restored was now being pulled toward the singularity, drawn by its gravitational force. We hadn't prevented the disaster. We'd made it worse. What do we do? Another duplicate asked. I looked at the device in my hand, then at the localized temporal anchor in my pocket. The one my future self had given me 15 years ago, when this all started. The one that only worked once. I understood now why she'd given it to me. She'd known this moment was coming. I need all of you to stabilize the restored timelines, I said to my duplicates. Hold them in place. Don't let them get pulled into the singularity. What are you going to do? The singularity is made of collapsed timelines, compressed energy with nowhere to go. It needs to be released, but not explosively. It needs to be distributed evenly across all existing timelines, integrated back into the fabric of reality. That's impossible. The energy levels would tear you apart. Not if I'm outside the timeline when it happens. The anchor will pull me into neutral space. I can trigger the distribution from there and survive. You'll be trapped, stuck between timelines forever. Better than everything ending. I didn't give them time to argue. I activated the device, felt myself being pulled toward the singularity. The gravitational force was immense, crushing. I could feel timelines all around me, screaming as they were dragged toward oblivion. At the last moment, right at the event horizon, I activated the temporal anchor. Reality shattered. I found myself in a space that wasn't space, a moment that wasn't a moment, neutral territory. The place between all timelines where nothing existed except pure possibility. From here I could see everything, every timeline, every branch, every moment of history spreading out like a vast web. And at the center, The singularity, a knot of compressed realities, pulling everything toward destruction. I reached into it with the device. Felt the compressed timelines inside, all those collapsed possibilities. They weren't gone. They were just waiting, dormant. I began to release them, not as separate timelines, but as potential, as the infinite possibilities that existed in every moment, the roads not taken that gave meaning to the roads that were. I wove them back into the fabric of reality, distributed them across every timeline, every branch, every moment. The singularity began to unravel. It took hours or maybe seconds. Time had no meaning here. But slowly, carefully, I released all that compressed energy back into the web of existence. The pressure eased. The gravitational pull weakened. The timelines stopped screaming. When it was done, the singularity was gone. The timelines were stable. Reality was whole again, not converged into one stream, but existing as a multitude of possibilities, the way it was supposed to. And I was trapped in the space between them. I tried using the device to jump back, but it wouldn't respond. The anchor had pulled me out of the timeline entirely. I existed here now, in neutral space, able to see everything but touch nothing. I was a ghost, just like Kira had been. I don't know how long I stayed there. Time didn't pass in the usual way, but I watched the timelines evolve, watched versions of myself in different realities live out their lives. Some good, some bad, all real. I saw Kira, in the Singapore branch, rebuilding her life. Saw the people from the pockets integrating back into their timelines, grateful to exist again. Saw the timeline where I'd taken the money from Director Hassan, where I'd walked away and never stolen the device. Saw that version of me living quietly, working data entry, drinking burnt coffee every morning. It looked peaceful. And then, one day, or one moment, or one eternity later, I felt something change. A ripple in neutral space. Someone else was here. I turned and saw him. Another person, middle-aged, wearing clothes I didn't recognize. He smiled when he saw me. "You must be new here," he said. "Welcome to the Between." The Between? That's what we call it. Neutral space. The place for people who fell through the cracks. He gestured and I realized there were others. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, scattered through the space between timelines. People who'd gotten trapped like me. "How long have you been here?" I asked. "Subjective time. About 30 years. Objective time. There's no such thing here. But you learn to adapt. We've built a kind of community, support network for the temporally displaced." He showed me around, taught me how to navigate neutral space, how to observe timelines without interfering, how to communicate with the others trapped here. It wasn't a life, exactly, but it was something, a purpose. And slowly, I learned something else. The Between wasn't just a prison. It was a safeguard. We were the people who'd sacrificed our place in reality to keep the timeline stable. We watched for new singularities, new fractures, new temporal disasters. And when we found them, we worked together to fix them before they could cause damage. We were guardians, ghosts, who protected the living. I still watch that version of me sometimes, the one who took the money and walked away. She's older now, has a partner, and a small garden on her apartment balcony. She drinks better coffee. She's happy. I'm glad one of us got that ending. As for me, I exist in the spaces between her moments. Between everyone's moments. I'm the ghost in the machine of reality, making sure the timelines stay stable, the branches stay healthy, the web holds together. It's not the ending I wanted. But looking back at that morning 15 years ago, when I woke up to burnt coffee and a message from my future self, I realized something. She never told me how the story ended. She just gave me the tools to survive it. And I did. I'm still here, in my own way, still working, still fighting to keep reality intact, still hoping that maybe someday, someone will figure out how to pull us out of the Between and give us a chance to be real again. But until then, I'll keep watching, keep protecting, keep making sure that all those versions of me across all those timelines get to live their lives, make their choices, drink their coffee. That's enough. It has